Welcome to Freedom Through Fitness, the podcast where we explore how strength, movement, and resilience can transform lives. I'm your host, Megan Batchelor, founder of Focused Personal Training, and each week I sit down with real people, local voices, and expert guests to uncover the true power of fitness, not as a way to chase perfection, but to reclaim confidence, health, and freedom. Based in Southampton, UK, and sharing stories that inspire everywhere. Let's get into it. In this episode, I'm joined by someone who knows me better than most, my sister, Dr. Ruth Guest. Ruth is a GP, lecturer in military medicine, and women's health specialist whose work spans research, education, and clinical care. She brings a wealth of professional insight, but also a deeply personal perspective, shaped by her own journey through motherhood, mental health challenges, and competitive sport. What makes this conversation so powerful is the way that Ruth blends clinical expertise with lived experience, creating an open, honest dialogue that bridges the gap between what women are often told and what they're actually living through. Although much of our discussion centres on women's health, this episode is not just for women. More and more men are seeking to better understand the female experience, to show up with greater awareness, empathy, and support for the women in their lives, whether that's a partner, friend, colleague, sister, mother, or daughter. This conversation offers powerful insights for anyone who wants to be part of that progress. We dive into everything from postnatal recovery to perimenopause, pelvic floor myths to period stigma, from the mental load of motherhood to the strength-building benefits of rowing in her living room. It's a wide-ranging, deeply human, and often funny episode, and I'm so excited to share it with you. So let's get into it. What is the most important form of exercise?
Well, I don't think I can give you an answer for that one. I think the key is, and I've heard you say it before, so I'm going to say it back to you, it's the one that you're going to do.
Today I am very lucky to be welcoming my very talented sister and Surgeon Lieutenant Commander Ruth Guest to the podcast.
Hi.
Ruth has a tri-service role as a lecturer in the Academic Department of Military General Practice. She's a specialist in health research methods and has recently completed her diploma in community gynecology. Now, obviously, I know all about you, but I would love you to share with the audience how you ended up in the role that you're in today.
So I was thinking about this the other day, and I have no idea where this memory came from, but I'm pretty sure it's accurate and I haven't just made it up. But I remember being at school, sat on the floor, so I think it was primary school, and I've no idea why, but they were showing us a video of open heart surgery. I'm not sure why is it in primary school we were doing that, but you saw the actual heart beating and everyone thought it was disgusting, and I thought it was absolutely amazing, and that was the point that I started to realise how incredible the human body was, and medicine kind of came from there, really.
Your path then led you to join the military and join the Navy. Where did that decision process come from?
Well, our dad always spoke really highly of the Navy, but I thought I was too much of a home girl really for it. I liked my routines. I liked if we went on holiday, I was always the one thinking, oh yes, when we get back, I settle back into home life again. So I didn't think it was for me. But as part of med school, you get to go on an elective, so you can go anywhere else in the world to study medicine for sort of a couple of months. And I had a whale of a time. I really enjoyed travelling. I really enjoyed meeting new people. And so I thought maybe it is for me. And as soon as I got back, I applied and realised I'd been growing up to be a little Navy person all my life. I hadn't realised that had been grooming us to join the military without realising. So if you think back to our bedroom inspections for our pocket money, it turns out that's very similar to Navy life. And I really fit straight in and haven't looked back.
So during your time in your medical qualifications, obviously you have to start thinking about, like, where does your spark lie? Wind yourself back to that time and have a think why you decided to go into general practice.
I don't like the same thing every day, and so I knew quite quickly I'd settled down to either general practice, emergency medicine, or anaesthetics, and people think those are all quite separate, but you have something different every day in most of them. I discounted anaesthetics relatively early on because it's either quite quiet or really, really busy, and so moved across into A&E or general practice. But I'm nosy, I really like knowing my patients, and I really like seeing them again, which is what swayed it to general practice from emergency medicine, but you never know what's coming through the door, and I do love that.
How did you see your influences from your experience in the Navy affect where you then pursued further specialism in your career?
It was a little bit of a few things, really. So when I had my children, obviously the care that you get is quite women's healthy in anything to do with having pregnancies and postnatally. And there was times within that I was struggling. So I struggled with my mental health after each pregnancy, and I could tell that there was gaps that women were falling into because there aren't as many women in the military. We don't necessarily see those medical problems all the time, and we can get a bit rusty at them. So I then focused on that a little bit, did some research during my general practice training, and then as I came across this, if you're a female GP, often other women come and see you, and so I was seeing more and more, and there's a lot around women's health across the board that how do we say it? There's a lot of gaslighting in medicine. It's been in the news recently about medical misogyny and things like that. And I hate injustice and becoming more and more of a hardcore feminist. And I saw the gap and I wanted to do better for our women. So I got more and more into women's health as I went. And now I can't have a conversation without mentioning the word vulva.
Just got to drop that clanger in there. I think what's really useful to know is the personal story that runs in tandem with the professional one. So you alluded to postnatally, you struggled a little bit with your mental health, and that sparked your career. But I also have the benefit of knowing that that's one of the points in your life where you became the most active and you got more involved in sport. So tell us, how did that manifest? What is the sport? What did you do? And how did that help you both personally and professionally?
Yeah, we weren't really very into sport growing up, I don't think. It was things that we had to do at school now and again. And then got a little bit fitter and got into running, particularly with Dad again, with doing half marathons and marathons and things like that, but just as a bit of a fun runner and getting fit to join the military. But it was at the point in maternity leave that my husband was doing indoor rowing, which is quite a niche sport, but turns out there's British champs and European champs and world champs within that sport of indoor rowing. And we use it quite a lot in the military because every gym has got a rowing machine. It's on, the ships and things like that as well. And it was at home, so if I was trying to get fit, but I couldn't really leave the house because I had new babies, I jumped on the rowing machine, got quite good at it for a time, and it was the fittest I think I've ever been and strongest I've ever been, and I got to represent the Navy at the British champs and go for the world champs as well, so it was really good fun.
So how do you think that physical exercise helped you with your mental health as well?
I think it was really important because I did self-treat with exercise, I think, and it gives you control of something in your life again. And you get the endorphins, and we know it's there's national guidelines that suggest that mild to moderate low mood, that is just as good exercise as, say, antidepressants and things like that. And so it really helped me gain a bit more control over my life and have some power physically, which then helped me with strength mentally as well.
There's such a huge part of becoming a mum is almost losing a sense of yourself. It's not something that you necessarily begrudge, but you're almost taking a part of your puzzle to complete theirs. And because it is all encompassing, you have to focus entirely on them. So when the opportunity comes to regain that sense of self through something like exercise, you could step away from being a mum, even though I know that you were sometimes using the sound of the rowing machine as white noise to get the kids to sleep. When you were able to travel thanks to being involved in competitive rowing, and when you were able to sit in the middle of an Olympic stadium on your rower next to other really powerful women and men, it builds you up and it regains that sense of self, I think, which is so important, and a big part of the reason why I think a lot of women do struggle with their mental health around their postnatal sort of phase, if you like. It's really great to see how that has impacted your personal life as well. But what is your day-to-day like now in your role? Like, who do you help, and what's the spark that gets you out of bed in the morning and think this is the difference that I can make?
I don't think I'd be allowed to stay in bed because the children would get me out of bed. But yeah, absolutely. I don't really have a routine at the moment. I mean, I absolutely love my job. It's an academic role, so I lecture and teach and do research. And I get to tour the country and teach women and, in fact, everybody about women's health. And every time I give a talk to a group of people and I actually teach them what a period is and all the different ways that people experience them, it's great. I just see the penny drop and people realise, well, that's why this happens, and that's why I have these side effects to this, and that's why I feel awful at this time of the month, or that's how I can support my friends or my colleagues or my loved ones, and so that's the sharing of the education is really my passion at the moment.
I think that goes really nicely on to when we've had conversations in the past about this, like, what do you feel your mission is?
I often say my two big points are that women need the knowledge about their bodies and about what's available to them, and the access to those products or methods to be able to control their menstruation or to be able to control their health, and that impacts on human performance. So that's the drive. All women should be empowered And I think it's worth touching on language as well, because when I do women's health, it's not just people who identify as women that have these problems or things that they need to understand. So it's across the spectrum. We all need to understand our bodies better and how they work to begin with. I don't think it's taught that well in school. And so it's all about knowledge and access.
As you're listening, you might be feeling that spark, feeling inspired to explore how fitness could become part of your own life and help you to live with more energy, confidence and choice. If that's you, I'd love to invite you to visit freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk, where you can book a free discovery call with the Focused PT team of experts and find out what working together could look like. No pressure, just a real conversation, because you deserve to feel strong. You deserve to move through life feeling proud and not punished, and it's never too late to put yourself first. And now, back to the conversation. That's a really, really important topic to come back to. So that formation of your relationship with exercise from adolescence. Like, we know that a really strong relationship with physical activity, whatever that might look like in adolescence, is such a powerful carryover to the rest of people's lives. But you and I will remember being at secondary school. It was commonplace for girls in the class to say, I'm on my period today, I can't do PE. And they would genuinely just have to sit in a changing room for an hour while everyone else went off and did PE, to literally just sit and stare at a wall for an hour because they were menstruating. It's balmy. Like, what are your thoughts around the importance of us not having menstruation be a barrier to exercise?
There's no need for it to be. Once you understand the process and you understand the ways in which that you can control things, menstruation should never impact on your quality of life at home or your exercise or your work or going to school. So about 1 in 10 women have endometriosis, and that can be right from teenage years. And those women will often miss a couple of days of school every month. And so you think about that cumulatively, that missed education. And there's a learning point there, not just for the girls that are saying, I can't possibly exercise on my period, but also for the teachers, because there's a lack of understanding there if they think that that's the best way to move things through. And it's all about talking and sharing that knowledge.
So on the subject of how important building a relationship between adolescents is and with exercise, we've both got female children as well. We've got a bit of each. But obviously now this conversation and the messages that we give our children around sport and particularly our girls, because we know what kind of messages we grew up with and how they've affected us. What are the messages that you try and pass on to your daughter when it comes to your relationship with exercise and body?
I think having a daughter has absolutely pushed me further down that feminist path that I'm very happy to be on. You see the world in a different light. You see all the influences. And I think when we were adolescents, certainly in the 90s, it was all about being smaller, both with your actual body. Strong bodies weren't a thing then, but also just the space that you took up and the presence that you had. It was all about being smaller. And I just want to encourage young women to own the room and take up the room and be proud of who they are. And I try and get Olivia, who's my daughter, I always want to show her how powerful she is and how strong, and it's look at what my body can do, it's not look at my body. And it's trying to move away from that narrative that we get in social media and the press and things about looking at what someone looks like. It's what can you do with your body, and having strength is so important to that. And there's horrible statistics out there, isn't there, about, I think it's something like of the girls that are active in adolescence and regularly doing sport, about 60% of them will stop doing sport in adolescence. For a variety of reasons. They worry about how they look when they're doing it, they worry about their hair or getting changed or just the way that their body moves. And there's also science behind it as well. As they start to grow, the dynamics of their body changes. So as their hips get larger or wider, it changes all the angles and it can feel more uncomfortable. And unless they know to expect that and they can train through it and train their new body shape, they're going to feel uncomfortable and they'll step away from sport.
And that's a real shame, because I think that mentality does carry through into your life as an adult. And a lot of the misconceptions that I come across are things like, oh, I don't have abs, I've had children. Or I can't go on a trampoline because I wet myself, but that's normal. I've had children. What's really important to me is that people realise that that's not something that you should just accept. I mean, what's your experience of that in your role?
I've got to do a shout out to my dear friend and colleague, Emily, who's a women's health physio, and she gets driven mad by this is normal. It's not normal, it's typical, it's common, but it's not normal to wet yourself after having children. And we need to work on our pelvic floor, and your Tenor Lady adverts that make it normal. It's okay if you wet yourself, just put one of these in.
Because they're pretty. You've got pretty pants now, so it's fine.
Now.
So it's okay that you look normal.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that what you're experiencing and trying to hide is going on, as long as you look normal.
As long as you look okay to people on the outside. No, actually we need to be focusing on us, focusing on our pelvic floor. And you don't have to wet yourself on a trampoline after having babies. There's lots that we can be doing. And pelvic floor is really important prenatally as well. There's lots in my work of young fit women, often their pelvic floor might be too tight even, particularly with sports women. And so it's really important to take regard of that. And I was giving a lecture with Emily the other day, and she was saying actually we need to be stretching our pelvic floor or relaxing our pelvic floor just like we would with anything else, because that's been working hard while you've been lifting weights, and you forget about that.
And then we've got that other big M sitting there that is the menopause, and people are getting better at talking about it. It is slightly less hidden away now, but there's still a hesitation and about speaking openly about it. What's your experience of the symptoms and how they are affecting the patients that you work with, and how that sculpts the work and the research that you do?
It can be a really tricky time, and the first bit, going back to knowledge and access, is knowing what's going on with your body, knowing what to look out for. And some people sail through, and it's a phase of life that anyone with the female sex will go through, but the symptoms can be a full range from head to toe. And I'm interested in the mental health changes, but we know just the same as any other mental health changes that exercise can really help there. Lots of people really struggle with their weight in the perimenopause and menopause. It just changes the things that they used to do in their 20s and 30s to sort of just curb that little gain that you get over Christmas or over a holiday. It doesn't work anymore, and it can be really frustrating. And you'll carry it in a different place. So women will often carry it around their middle when they never used to. It always used to be sort of bum and hips, and they used to have a flat tummy, and it's not there anymore. And that can really take away their confidence. It can take away their sense of self, very similar to the postnatal period as well. And so I really try and encourage people to lift weights, which I know you're a big fan of, and it's really key. So actually long cardio isn't necessarily what's going to help in that phase of life. Your ability to lay down muscle and keep the muscle that you've got really gets hindered in the perimenopause. So it's a word called sarcopenia, and lots of people know about osteopenia or osteoporosis, which is the thinning of the bones, but actually this loss of muscle mass is probably more important even than that. And so it's really important that people do resistance and weight-based training in that time.
It's literally a conversation I had with a lady today who's late 40s. She's not particularly carrying excess weight, but for her she's feeling like she's got a bit of extra fluff. But she was absolutely shocked to be told by her doctor that she's pre-diabetic. And we had a really interesting conversation about how adding lean mass can really improve insulin sensitivity and exercise in general, but obviously the exercise that stimulates the lean mass. And one of her concerns, and certainly perhaps a psychological barrier to her having lifted heavy weights before, was that she didn't want to get bulky. She wanted to still feel feminine and slim. But what's really important for ladies to know is actually they're starting from a position of the body letting go of lean mass. And so lifting weights, actually what we're trying to do is just hang on to what you've got and hopefully maybe add a little bit extra so that you remain strong, empowered and resilient to what the future has to hold. But you know, the likelihood of you swinging right through all of those stages and into bulkiness is not going to happen. Can you tell me why that is?
It's just the change in those hormones. You're losing a bit of testosterone and the other sex hormones. And so often women in perimenopause will see this slight gain in weight and they will calorie restrict and do long cardio because that might be what they used to do in the past. And they will lose weight, but it will be their lean mass. And that's why it will still stay around their tummies. And they will lose strength as well. So that's why it's so vital, exactly as you're saying. It's almost... the way that your body metabolizes sugars and things like that changes, and it's in addition to that pre-diabetic type stage, and so even if you're really lean you may well move into that. And so lifting weights and fighting that decline, even just to stay still with your lean mass, is really important. And there's more and more evidence to suggest actually if you're just cutting calories and dropping weight, you're most likely dropping your lean mass and not your fat mass.
If you're listening and thinking that's all well and good for them, but I feel miles away from that version of fitness, you're not alone. We know what it's like to feel stuck, not to know where to begin, or to wonder if it's even possible for someone like you. The Focused PT team is here to meet you exactly where you are, No judgment, no pressure. Just a real conversation about where you're at, where you want to go, and how we can help you to finally break through what's held you back. Because putting yourself first isn't selfish. It's how you build a stronger future for yourself and for those you care about. You are worthy of more energy, more confidence, and more freedom. And your first step is just a few clicks away at freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk. Now, let's get back to today's guest. And that leads really well into what we have given as a title to this podcast, the idea of maintaining freedom through fitness. And whether that is little old lady getting out of the chair, or whether that is someone who doesn't realise it yet, but they're headed for a dangerous place because the muscle is wasting away, even though they're trying their very best to live a healthy life. So I wanted to kind of pose that question to you. So this phrase, freedom through fitness, we're using it a lot, but as an individual, both personally and professionally, what does maintaining freedom through fitness mean to you?
It's the freedom to not rely on somebody else. I'm very feisty and independent, and although I'm short, so I need help reaching stuff, I don't want to have help lifting stuff or opening as I get older, I don't want to be asking someone else to open a jar for me, or quite often my husband will say we don't have time to build a wardrobe, so I'll just build it myself, and things like that. And to get lifting weights and staying strong means that I can do those things. I feel really empowered when I don't have to wait for someone else, be the little lady who has to wait for a man to help me. So that's a freedom and empowerment in that sense, but also playing with the children. They're super active kids, and so I don't even have to think about it. If they say, can we just go and run around? If I go to the park, we have to play sharks. Inevitably they'll say, can we play sharks? Which is where I have to run around being a shark, and they climb up my equipment and run away from me, and they're really fast. So I don't have to think about it. I mean, I spend most of the summer in a sports bra for these reasons, but it's so lovely to not have to think about, well, from the pelvic floor thing, if I run after them, I'm going to work myself. From the general fitness, I can run around, I can still lift them up. I still remember when my husband was deployed for a long time, and I had one on the front and one on the back when they were about 4 and 2, I think. So they were still quite big. And I was walking around at this fireworks we went to together, I think, and I had them both. And I felt really empowered that I could just carry however many kilos of child, plus they can't run away if they're strapped in at the front and the back when you're solo parenting. But not having to think, am I fit enough, am I strong enough to do these things, is really important. When they like to jump up and do this weird dance move, and I don't have to worry about that, I can just lift them, which is good.
And how about in the patients that you see? So if we are looking a little bit more around those menopausal ladies who we're really trying to reach out to in this conversation, as well as the adolescents, as well as the parents of the adolescents, as well as the woman who sat on her own baby in arms feeling like she's in Groundhog Day and she's lost the sense of herself. I think the menopausal ladies, things that you said to me before, is the impact that hormonal changes, which applies at all three of those phases I've just talked about, impacts your confidence, and how exercise at the same time impacts in a more positive way. So this idea of, perhaps brain fog, meaning that you don't present in that meeting that you wanted to, which means you don't go for the promotion, which means you shrink back. Whereas exercise, improving your posture, making you stand taller, wearing that suit that you really love to wear, can do the opposite. Are these the things that you're seeing, and this idea of prescribing exercise? Yeah,
I love that, and we use a lot of that in the military because we've got that control over our environment. But it's walking taller, it's feeling more confident, and going back even to that adolescence, knowing what your body can do in movement. I hope our daughters will walk with more confidence in what can be a scary world, and know what they can do, and right there through that, your postnatal lady and your menopausal lady, it's all about what can my body do, not what can it no longer do. Because it could be a real sense of regret and a sense of what you've lost, so actually taking control, and that freedom through fitness is what can I now do that I couldn't do before, not what have I lost.
That's fantastic. What do you think about the phrase that we should be more worried about people being under-muscled than over-fat?
I think it's a great clickbait, because I think if you go to the extremes, I would disagree. But actually in the middle, I really do agree with it. I think if you have a strong base, it doesn't matter if the outside's a bit fluffy, you are still able to do everything that you need to do. It's when that gets to an extreme, then we need to think about the stress that's putting on the body. But actually we don't all have to be the fitness model. We could have a good set of abs and some strong glutes and just have a little bit of fluff over the top, and that's absolutely fine. And we've talked before about coming in and out of different phases of your life, and when you can be a bit fitter, and when actually you're just maintaining, and so we've got to give ourselves a break a bit.
And it's sometimes when I'm having initial consultations with people, they will say something big happened in my life. I was on a path, I was healthy, I was exercising regularly, and something happened, whether it was grief, whether it was COVID, whether it was just moving house, or sometimes moving countries. And I let it go, and I've put on weight, and I'm so disappointed. And I'll always just say, it's okay. You did what you needed to do in that moment to cope with what you had. And now you're ready for the next phase of your life. So we'll all have the ups and downs, as long as the overarching thing is to take care of your health, and mentally and physically. For the people listening, what is the most important form of exercise?
Well, I don't think I can give you an answer for that one. I think the key is, and I've heard you say it before, so I'm going to send it back to you, it's the one that you're going to do. It's the one that you enjoy, or that you certainly don't dislike. And for women's health, if you look at specifically at the science behind it, we really need to be making sure that we are adding in weights and resistance training. But if I tell everyone you've got to do that, and it's that or nothing, that's no good. It needs to be something that someone wants to do. It's a bit like a medicine or a prescription. We get told the only prescription that's a good prescription is the one that the patient's going to take. There's no point prescribing something that sits in a cupboard because there's a side effect they haven't told you about, and they really just don't like it because it's not going to do anything. You might as well give a slightly less effective medicine that they are going to take. And I feel the same about exercise. We can give someone all the information and maybe a bit of tasters of the things that we'd like them to do, but actually if sitting on a bike and watching your soaps it works for you, then that's still better than sitting on a sofa and watching your soaps. And if you can have a couple of dumbbells next to it, and at the end of the soaps in the credits you might do a few weights with those, brilliant, that's it. Whereas if we said you must lift weights, that might scare people off and they don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think exercise modality is like needing a variety of fruit and veg. Like we need a little bit of different stuff. We need the low intensity steady walking, and we need the higher intensity stuff that will grow our fitness. But if either end of that spectrum sounds incredibly dull to you, then go for the thing in the middle, the Zumba class, the group jogging or something that's going to get you moving. And one of the phrases I really like to say is like, do the thing that you need to do that enables the thing that you love doing. And then all of a sudden the thing that you don't like that much doesn't seem so bad. So if you're not that keen on the weight sessions, but it means that you can play better at the sport you love, just do like a little one per week, because then you play your sport better. Or if you don't like doing the stretches or the physio exercises to fix your injury, just do them that once or twice per week so that you can go and play with your kids without hesitation. So do the thing that you need to, but only because it means that you can do the thing that you love. And we have to appreciate, particularly in the fitness industry, we are the minority who just love the buzz of exercise. For a lot of people, the idea of exercise makes them roll their eyes. So if they can find a thing that they enjoy doing and that reduces the friction, then we're winning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're moving. What message would you want to share with both adolescent girls and with perhaps the parents of adolescent girls, or the people whose loved ones are adolescent girls? What message would you like to give them in terms of approaching building a healthy relationship with exercise from that point?
I'd say go back to the knowledge. So understand your body and the changes that are going on at that time, or for your daughter or loved one. I'm very blessed. I've been asked to go into a school and teach about periods, which is great because I've been saying how it's not taught properly. So now I've got to put my money where my mouth is, and all the things that go on. And I go right back to the whole cycle of the hormones, and I explain what's happening at each point. And once you've understood that and understood how things like exercise can complement and support your cycle through, and how you can feel better about your body, because adolescence is a really tricky time. Your body is doing things that you don't understand, so you can take some of that control back. And we've talked lots about control and understanding your body. So seizing back that control by doing things that you know and you can predict, and that empower you, can be really helpful in that really unknown time. But also the knowledge as well, and understand what's going on with your body.
Your body is a machine and not a work of art.
Yes.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that one too. So I want to thank you so much in everything that you've talked to us about today. I know that it was really important to you to clarify. I know you said it earlier, but once again, that the language we use around, women, ladies, menopause, adolescence, puberty, all of those things is as inclusive as possible. Yeah. So is there do you want to reiterate that in terms of reaching out to as many people as possible?
Yeah, I think it's just really important to look at any of this information and advice that we give. And it might be that you don't identify as a woman, but you do identify with some of the things that we've said, or vice versa. And so it's just important that you understand your body, and be kind and compassionate to everyone that you know as well, because someone might be going through something that you don't necessarily understand. But all these things, understanding your hormonal cycle, understanding your body, is really important.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you've taken some really useful parts from that. That's it for today's episode of Freedom Through Fitness. I hope you're leaving this conversation feeling inspired, encouraged, and maybe just a little more connected with the version of yourself that you're working toward. One that moves with confidence, lives with more energy, and chooses strength on your own terms. If you're ready to take that next step, don't forget, the Focused PT team is here to support you. You can book a free discovery call right now at freedompod.focusedpt.co.uk. No pressure, just a real conversation about what your freedom through fitness could look like. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, tag us at Focused PT UK, or leave a quick review. It helps us reach more people and keep these powerful conversations going. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Meg Batchelor, and I'll see you next time.